This is a Hot Pie Media original.
Well, the timing of this is funny and interesting at the same time. Just last week, I think probably more than once, like a lot of you, I said, is anyone going to challenge Greg Abbott? I mean, if there's ever numerically, if there's ever a time to do it, it's a pretty good time. Where is everyone? Why is it so quiet? Why does this guy, this governor, running for one job, campaigning for one job while retaining the other, just gets to cruise through this entire 6-month period and no challenges, no trash talking, nothing? Yeah, well, okay. It appears now that he has one real challenger and the other candidate, whatever he is, we don't know. We have no idea what the other guy's doing or not doing. We're not sure, but we are now learning that more than likely he has a challenger, and there's probably, by the time his career's over, there's probably not going to be a job he has not tried to get in political office. So let me set it up this way. I know most people don't care. Frankly, don't care at all. Most people don't care, and if you have a life, you don't pay attention to politics much. It's just a bunch of background noise, and they're all, to you, justifiably so, just a bunch of losers. Got it. So let me set this up in hopefully an interesting way for everyone. One, okay, now this is just sort of broad. This is something that everybody who works for a living, you can appreciate these terms. Okay, one is Greg Abbott, the current governor of the state of Texas. Is he campaigning for one job and keeping another? If so, it's pretty amazing to watch. And if you're saying, I don't know, well, yeah, you do know he is. He didn't do that circus with Donald Trump and the border wall or whatever's happening there by accident. So it's amazing that he's able, and I think he's able to pull off campaigning for one job, the presidency, while retaining the other. And believe it or not, they kind of work together. You get to say the same stuff to the same small audience, whether you're running for the White House or keeping your job as governor of the state of Texas. So there's that, and you can observe that and think that one through. It's pretty remarkable. Most of you could not operate that way. Of course, you probably at some point might get in a little bit of trouble, might lose focus if you are chasing other jobs while trying to keep your current job. It's an issue, but he's pulling it off, and he's pulling it off, frankly, pretty easily. Now, it could be that neither one of them work out, but right now, absent any trash talking from anyone else, it seems like it's working for him. There's that. And then let me set this up with business terms, okay? Because I think the business terms work. I think most sensible people who work for a living can appreciate some of these. But the governor's race in the state of Texas, if this is all going to come together, and we have another third thing out there that's really interesting, and that one, for my job, would be really cool. But the governor's race, I think this seems a little dramatic, but I think it could be, if done properly, and I don't know that it'll be done properly by either side. I don't trust that any of them have any clue what they're doing marketing-wise. But if done correctly, it's the future of politics. I mean, it is. It could be Republicans turning into Sears. Or it could be Republicans hanging on being Sears for a few more years. I mean, it really is that. It's at kind of that fork in the road. If done properly, the opponent could turn Greg Abbott and the Republicans into Sears, doors closed. That's it. If not done properly, I don't trust that it will be. If not done properly, then Sears stays open. Radio Shack stays open a little bit longer. Blockbuster has a little bit more store traffic for a little bit longer. I think that's really where this political race is. It is the future of politics in this state, I think. And it's happening maybe a little faster than we predicted. It could happen a little faster than most people predicted, or Sears stays open. That's that I think is what a big deal this is, just in kind of the macro sense. Forget all the issues. You don't care about the issues. Everyone's lying about the issues, blah, 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 blah. But the macro of this political race, I think, is that important, that interesting. So here are the business terms. For Greg Abbott, let me think of several businesses that are just, the market is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing, but you want to keep the doors open. Maybe Sears is too dramatic. Something that doesn't have much of a future, but it is alive and operating in the present. And I don't know what that would be other than Sears. But for Greg Abbott to keep his job, the state of Texas job, not the White House job, but to keep this job, it's retention. It's just retention. And that's easy. It's easy. There was a brilliant moment, few brilliant moments actually, on Thursday or Friday of this past week. Julie Oliver, who is just too smart for politics, was on this show, and she made a pretty interesting claim, and she's right and smart. And that is essentially Greg Abbott and Republicans are hanging on to about 9 to 15%. But that 9 to 15% absolutely shows up. So where Greg Abbott is and where Republicans are now, they've got a really, really, really ridiculously loyal voting bloc, customer base. And they'll hang on to them. But it's probably all they have. How long can that last? So for him, it's really just a game of retention. That's it. He can hang on to what he has. He can hang on to the older women. He can hang on to the grandmas. And he can hang on to older white guys in rural Texas. And he will. And will it be enough? So it's retention. But then his opponent or opponents, because we have no idea what the other guy who drives a Camaro is doing. We have no idea. Because that person, by the way, is the most important aspect of the entire governor's race. I know that sounds weird. But for the opponent of Greg Abbott, this one's pretty simple, I think. It will probably not be executed properly, but we'll see. And the opponent has this. These are business terms, but the opponent has this: awareness and conversions. Now, if we were up on a whiteboard or we're doing stuff, awareness and conversions. In other words, you have to get people to pay attention because you've got a bunch of people that, if they pay attention, they matter. Okay? You have to get them to pay attention. You have to get them to care. And then conversions, if those of you in sales know, I mean, it's one thing to get a prospect interested. It's one thing because you have to get them interested first, but then you have to convert the prospect. The prospect has to buy. The prospect has to go in the store. The prospect has to click on the site. Conversions. I don't know if that can be done. I don't know if people care enough. You have to make them care. And not just that, you have to then get them to vote. I think I know how to get them to care. In fact, I feel really comfortable how you can get them to care, but then you're going to have to convert them into a vote. Greg Abbott has the conversions. Those old ladies will show up at any elementary school, any day, anytime. They will. Awareness and conversions. There it is in business terms. So if you've been under a rock and don't really care, here's why this is now news, we think, which is strange because I was just talking about this late last week. Citing, quote, unnamed Texas political operatives. By the way, don't think for a second this is an accident. Nothing in politics is an accident. It's like reality TV. Nothing is an accident. It's all planned. It's all scripted. So I don't believe for a second this is, someone made it up. Come on. Citing unnamed Texas political operatives, Axios reports Beto O'Rourke, a Democrat, is preparing to run in the gubernatorial election and will announce his run later this year. If that's true, I don't get it. I'm already confused by you. But okay, why later? You need to be talking trash right now. From the Dallas Morning News and the University of Texas, here it is, 37%. Hey, look at that number. What is it I always talk about? 35%. 37% of registered voters in Texas would vote for Beto O'Rourke. 42% would back Greg Abbott. Now that's head to head. That's, I know people want to dismiss this, but numerically, that's pretty dangerous for Greg Abbott. It is. So and that number's, he's coming back to the pack. Now he's coming back to the pack because he has to come back to the pack. He has to give Grandma what she wants. Grandma at the Baptist Church in East Texas, he has to super serve her. By super serving her, you run the risk of that big old bunch of potential customers. The poll was conducted September 7th through the 14th, blah, 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 blah. The poll found Greg Abbott would lose. Wait a minute. I know the most important part of this race, the most important part of the next governor's race in the state of Texas is Wooderson.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Not the issues. Shut up with the issues. Nobody cares. Wooderson decides the governor's race. There. Wooderson apparently could be governor. We have no idea what Wooderson is doing. None. Hasn't said anything except kumbaya every now and then. Wooderson, there's two things, and they all kind of work together. Wooderson, marijuana. There you go. Those are the topics of the day. There you go. Wooderson and marijuana, or marijuana and Wooderson, all together.
Hey, man, you got a joint? No, not on me, man. It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
You think I'm not kidding? I'm not kidding. The soundbite works. He and pot. Does anyone say pot? I'm going to say pot. Oh, crap. All right. Wooderson and marijuana is the most important thing in the governor's race. Don't tell me about transgendered athletes and abortion or guns. Do not say that. Wooderson and, I was about to say pot, Mary Jane. Let's go. Let's do all the old man terminology for marijuana. That's the most important thing today. And probably next month and a month after that. So here's what the polling data says. Greg Abbott would lose head-to-head against Matthew McConaughey. How's that feel, Beto? Feeling pretty good? That's great. You're the odd man out, man. So it tells you what he had better do. Surely you guys can piece this together, the strategy. Surely you can piece this together. Greg Abbott would lose a head-to-head matchup against Matthew McConaughey, with 44% saying they would vote for McConaughey, while 35, there's that number, 35 would back the governor. Okay. By the way, it's getting worse and worse for Abbott. Remember, he's going to keep going, and he's going to get to that 35 number, and that's where he's going to stay, because that's where Grandma and her son in rural Texas are. That's it. You better beat that number if you want to win. So McConaughey in April beat Abbott with 45. Abbott in July barely beat out McConaughey. I don't know why these numbers are bouncing around. It was 39-38. Blah, 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 blah. McConaughey supporters, 48% say, quote, his honesty to tell it like it is. He doesn't say anything is the most important quality. That made them want to vote for him, while Abbott supporters were most likely to appreciate that he shares their values. 35% said that. Okay. McConaughey support, 65% comes from Democrats, 44% independents, and 26%, this is what's interesting to me, 26% of Republicans. That's a big number. Wait, why all the conversation about Wooderson? Because Wooderson is going to decide this race. That's it. Beto O'Rourke can, and I think he probably will make this mistake, he can jump up on counters. He can get real sweaty and lead a bunch of COD students in a chant. He can do a lot of stuff. But as long as Wooderson is hanging around, he's not winning. obviously. So either he bails and Wooderson is in, or Wooderson bails. And then there's an important part to Wooderson. Wooderson is the most important person in the race. Wooderson is going to decide politics. Wooderson can fast track the future of Texas politics. That's how important Wooderson is, without doing or saying anything except kumbaya. Greg Abbott's approval rating is now down to 45%. He had a 12-point lead over Beto O'Rourke, but that number now is down to 5. So he's going to have to come back to the pack numerically because he has to make Grandma happy. By making Grandma happy, if somebody somebody who's not Grandma in East Texas, somebody who's in an urban area in the state of Texas, happens to answer the phone, they're not going to like it. But who knows if they vote, right? Okay, so let's just play this out now, assuming all of this is true. Because again, I think the significance of this is the future of politics in Texas. This tells you how much longer the Republicans can survive. This is the indicator of the future of Sears. Sears closes really quickly, or Sears stays open a little bit longer. That's what this is. So assuming all this is true, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's true because nothing happens by accident. Here's what Beto O'Rourke has to do. He has to do it. Forget sweating. Forget jumping up on counters. Forget, that running around speech that he gives seemingly all the time. Here's what he has to do. Number one, and before anything else, I don't care what else he says, he has to get Wooderson out. Wooderson has to go away, or it doesn't matter. If he wants to win, if he wants to have a chance, Wooderson has to leave. Then he needs Wooderson to say, I'm out. He needs Wooderson to not do a kumbaya thing. He needs Wooderson to say, I'm out. I'm clearly out. Whatever Wooderson has to say, the message has to be sent clearly to everyone who is not Grandma. Okay? Everyone else has to clearly hear Wooderson say, I'm not doing this. I'm out. Then Beto needs Wooderson. Wooderson needs to hint, sort of give praise. Wooderson needs to make it sound like he's behind Beto. I don't know if Wooderson will do that. So step number one is you got to get that guy to leave, because either one of you has to stay and one of you has to go. Greg Abbott has his storefront. He's a mall. He's a mall with Sears. Okay? And she's coming there to shop no matter what. Wooderson and Beto have to get this figured out, because you can't have both. That's just the way it is. So Beto's got to get Wooderson out. He has to. Then they both have a marketing problem. This is all I understand is, sort of audiences and strategy and stuff like that. They both have a marketing problem. This has nothing to do with the policies, okay? Nothing. Zero. Forget it. Yet. They both have a marketing problem. For Greg Abbott, it's a numbers problem. I mean, it's just a numbers problem. For Republicans, it's a numbers problem. Your day is coming and you have to know it. You don't need an MBA to look at this chart to figure out, oh my gosh, you're Sears. Okay? So he's got a numbers problem. At the same time, the numbers are his friend, because he's got Grandma and the old white guy no matter what. No matter what. And they're going to show up to vote. So he's got his pool of customers, his pool of voters, he's got. But he can't get anybody else. He's not going to add. He just has to hang on to what he has. It's sort of like the business of talk radio. We're dying a fast death. We just better hang on to what we have. He'll do that. So he's got a numbers problem. But then again, so does Beto. Beto is a numbers problem. Okay? Abbott's got older and white. Beto has, Abbott has much older and much whiter and much more rural. Beto has everyone else. And that's a giant number, except that problem, awareness and conversions. I don't know how you get them to vote. Wait, yes, I do. Marijuana. You better start screaming it. You better scream it now. And you better scream it at every college campus. You better scream it at every technology company. You need to be smoking weed on camera right now. You better do it, man. So that's how I think you get awareness. And then you better work like crazy to get conversions. Jeff, are you saying that the entire political race is coming down to marijuana? Yeah, I've already said it's Wooderson and marijuana. It's not transgendered. It's not abortion. It's not guns. It is Wooderson and marijuana. That's it. I mean, sweat all you want. Scream all you want. You better start talking about that, and you better make the case. Immediately. If you want everyone who's not shopping at Sears to care, you better talk about it a lot. Then, number 3. So, right, you got a numbers problem, but then you better start talking about marijuana at every level, every way. That's going to get people to pay attention. It'll just pay attention. Then make social issues everything. This is what Beto has to do. He has to make social issues everything. Everything. In major metro areas, you better attack Greg Abbott on social issues all day, every day. All day, every day. You better terrify a 35-year-old. You better terrify a 25-year-old. You better go Fox News on anyone who's not old and rural. You have to turn the Fox News template on everyone else, and that is you scare them to death. Just freak them out. Freak them out. The only way to freak people out is social issues. People don't care about taxes. Forget the Jeff Wards of the world. Just forget us. We don't matter. You better freak them out on social issues all day, every day. So you better do it while you're also smoking pot. That's it. And you better do it all the time. You better open up right away. Not jumping up and down and yelling about guns. Don't do that. You jump up and down talking about cannabis. You jump up and down talking about gummies. You jump up and down and say, 25-year-old technology worker in Austin, Texas, that guy hates you. You better do a little bit of Trump. You better go all sensational all the time. And then it'll be interesting. Then it will be really interesting. I mean, it's a really important race for the immediate future of politics. And really, it's a brutal race for Republicans. This is a brutal time because either this guy fast tracks your death and you being forced to reinvent yourself, or he screws it up enough to let your doors stay open a little bit longer. Okay? The other thing I would suggest, and I think this is further down the stretch, and I'm not quite sure people in politics are smart enough to pull it off, but kind of a weird strategy would be, do the first three things right away. I mean, first is Wooderson, of course. The fourth thing to do, I think, and I don't know how risky this would be, you have to find a way. This is sort of strategically how I would think. You have to find a way to get Greg Abbott to rip Donald Trump. You do that, he's done. Finished. They'll eat him alive. I know it's weird, but if you could find a way, and it takes a really calculated, vicious approach to how you communicate, and I don't think he's probably too much of a screamer, but if you find a way to get him to piss off the Trump crowd, bait him into it, suck him into it, they will eat him up. He's finished. He knows that, though. That's the problem. He's not, remember the thing about Greg Abbott as we talk about this, if he's if he is the immediate future of the Republican Party, he's not a fool like Trump. He's not a buffoon. He'll think before he talks. But if Wooderson or Beto O'Rourke, if anybody got Greg Abbott to slip up, I don't care if it's on mic or not, all you have to do is to get a Republican to say one bad thing about Donald Trump, and they are finished. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to work another day. He's done. They'll eat him up. They'll turn on him within minutes. Now, how you do that is a pretty calculated attempt. I would suggest that's far down your list of things to do. Your first priority is, hey, Matt. Hey, man. Look, are you going to be in or out? Because I kind of need to know. Because if you stay in, I'm done with this stuff. If you're out, I kind of need your help. Hey, every guy can relate to this. You're tired of wearing those baggy cotton shirts that feel like you're wearing curtains. There's a difference. In fact, I'm wearing the difference. That is the ultra premium basics from goodlifeclothing.com. You'll love the shirts. I've been searching for a long time, like every guy, for the perfect lightweight shirt that looks good if you're in pretty good shape. It's at goodlifeclothing.com. Check them out. You'll see the difference for yourself. You'll feel the difference for yourself. It's the perfect shirt for this time of year in Austin, Texas. So, two things. Go to goodlifeclothing.com. You get a 20% discount if you enter the promo code JeffWard20. That's goodlifeclothing.com. Enter the promo code JeffWard20 or stop by their store domain Northside. You'll love the difference. You'll feel the difference. It's the perfect fit for a guy that's in good shape. It's goodlifeclothing.com, promo code JeffWard20, or stop by their brand new store at Domain Northside. I've already thrown out what I think. First of all, he has to get Matthew McConaughey in or out. I mean, that Matthew McConaughey decides the governor's race.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. And I'm super skeptical about that. I just, I've seen this playbook a number of times too, where, celebrities, kind of look around and say, oh, well, I could do that. And, I'm really popular and wouldn't that be fun? And, it all seems fine in theory until the second you actually put your foot in the water. And then it's like, oh, shit, that's really freezing.
Right.
That's really uncomfortable. And I got to actually take positions on things.
Yeah.
And, for right now, people are, he's kind of a vessel for whatever people think. It's like, oh, but they don't know what he thinks. So you have independents and probably some Republicans who like the idea of Matthew McConaughey, but they really don't know what he thinks or what he believes.
But doesn't Beto O'Rourke have to get him out of the way? I mean, one way or another.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing is pointless if he's hanging around singing Kumbaya all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think throwing down the gauntlet and saying he's running will help do that.
Would you advise? I mean, how does that work? Would you advise somebody with Beto O'Rourke to say, look, you got to call Wooderson up and get this clarified now, or do you just sort of by running and making a bunch of noise, you sort of scare them off? How would that work?
I'd do both. I think first of all, I'd say, I say to almost any candidate who's thinking about running, just get in. Just get in and get going. And there's no upside to waiting. You got to raise money. You got to get attention. You got to make clear you're serious about it. And so that's what Beto's doing. But I would say, listen, give the guy a call and just say, listen, I'm one of your biggest fans. I hope that I can represent what you would want to do if you ran for governor. Let's talk about that. What do you think we need to do? And then just kind of get him in on the play, and let him be kind of part of your advisory crew.
Well, I mean, if you could get him on your side, you would probably win. I don't know how feasible that is, though.
I don't know that you'd probably win. I think it'd be helpful, but I think in this day and age, endorsements don't have nearly the bang that they used to.
So for Abbott, I think people are, he's done this, I don't even know of this sort of fascist turn. I'm not going to call it a right turn. I mean, it's almost a fascist turn. It is shockingly disconnected from reality what these special sessions in the state of Texas have been. That said, I guess you're going to argue he has no choice but to do it. He has to do it. Can he run for the White House and retain his job as governor? Is he doing two things at once, and is he able to pull it off?
Well, I don't think that he has to do it at all. I mean, he certainly has a choice, and I think he's making naked political decisions for what I think are the wrong reasons. I think that he's looking at kind of the Republican primary world and just, is in the race to claw his way to the bottom the fastest. That's what's happening with everybody. It's just a race to see who can be the Trumpiest. And I believe that, in order for listen, I mean, Trump is popular among a big part of the base, but let's be realistic about it too. He is twice impeached. He's one of the only presidents in the last 100 years who ran for re-election and lost. He's the only president since 1930, and so again 90 years, who ran and lost the Senate and lost the House. And so the Republican Party wants to double down on that. I'd say that's not a winning strategy.
Well, you may say it's not a winning strategy, but it's what he's doing. I mean, isn't that what Greg Abbott's doing?
That's exactly what he's doing. That's why I'm saying I think it's the wrong choice. But everybody's so afraid of Trump,
right,
and what he'll do to them with his sort of, what we see he does all the time. But that is the problem for the Republican Party, is that they are just completely attached at the hip. And listen, I don't know Greg Abbott. I mean, I've met him before, but I don't think that what we're seeing is really who that guy is.
No, I know.
From what I saw when I was in Texas, and from what I know, people who knew him from before, it's like he's unrecognizable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is a shockingly disconnected stream of policies that they're irrelevant. I mean, these bills that are passing mean nothing.
It's unfortunate because I have the feeling that in his heart of hearts he's a pretty reasonable guy.
Yes,
but this is what politics does to people.
Well,
in this day
right.
and age.
So that said, right, he's headed down that rabbit hole because he has no choice. They'll eat him alive.
Well, that's what also makes it possible for Beto to win. I mean, they're just going so down the rabbit hole. And, he's got Abbott has some primary opponents. So that's part of his problem. But on the other hand, if I were canceling Abbott, I'd say be the reasonable guy. You got a war chest of, what has he got, $30 or $40 million in the bank already?
Right.
You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine in the primary. Don't feel like you got to remake yourself into Trump Jr.
So how do you make... You didn't have to make Ann Richards a Texas Democrat, did you? Or maybe you did. How do you make, because you made a pretty good argument that Beto it shocked us, a lot of us that don't know the whole game like you do, shocked us that it worked as well as it did and almost beat Ted Cruz. But I think that's more about Ted Cruz just being a jackass and everybody hates him. How do you make Beto what you're saying?
Well, I mean, part of it is just having, candidates with really good instincts. Ann Richards has had great instincts. She understood how conservative it was and how tough it was going to be for Texans to vote for a woman for governor. And she just, she instinctively knew what to do. And like I say, I think Beto has great chops. I mean, I think he's a natural. But he was kind of a natural on the national scene. And he just has to kind of recompute that to be more of a Texas Democrat, because he's running, statewide for a Texas office now instead of a national office, which is a little different cat, but it allows him to kind of, just recalibrate a bit.
What happened to him on the national stage running for president? I mean, he's jumping up on counters in Iowa and stuff like that, and it just seemed to completely flame out.
Yeah, it did. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think it got, the spotlight was just, he flew a little close to the sun in the national scene. But then, listen, I learned a whole lot more in my career from losing campaigns than I did winning campaigns. So, I'm sure he took some good lessons out of that. So numerically, it all seems pretty well set up. Just like the whole Trump thing, there is no urban, you got nothing close to a city. You got nothing with a metro area. I mean, Trump the political lines or demographic lines are clearly drawn. It's about not having a college degree and being rural, period, end of story, correct? So if that's the case, do metro areas care? Does the 30-something in Austin, Houston, and Dallas care enough about Beto? How does Beto make them care and then make them go vote? Well, that's the whole playbook. I mean, he's got to run up the numbers in those metro areas, and he's got to get them really excited. And, part of that, I mean, Abbott's helping. I mean, because, it's going to be, it could be as much about voting against Abbott as it is voting for Beto.
Right. We know that's the other part. Can you, if you're sitting or advising him, do you try to turn him into Trump? Do you try to make this about Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. You know, I'd say that he's not running for governor. He's running for president.
Okay. Can you turn Greg Abbott into Trump?
Sure. He's doing it himself. You don't have to.
Because if it's Dan Patrick, that's easy because he's just like a walking, talking jackass version of Trump.
Yeah,
Greg Abbott's not
catching up.
Yeah.
Abbott's catching up. I got to go film the circus.
All right. Hey, tell us what's up on the show, by the way.
Well, we just premiered our first episode of season 6 last night, our fall run, and I'm in D.C. right now. I think this week we're going to kind of focus on all the foreign policy things that are colliding for Biden right now. He's going to be in New York, kind of on the world stage, and we got Boris Johnson coming in, and we got Afghanistan, we got Haiti, we got this French thing on the nuclear submarine. Biden's having a rough month.
Mark, he's aging. He's aging in dog years for a guy who can't afford to age in dog years.
I know.
I mean, honestly, I mean, it is. I mean, the one thing about this, but the one thing that people should appreciate, the weight of the presidency. That's exactly what the presidency is about. All that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I've never seen a president with so many fires burn at the same time right now. It's going to be a rough chapter. Anyway, it'll be on next Sunday night on the circus. All right. See ya.
Kick it.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.